My Hero Academia is one of the most popular and well-known manga and anime of recent times, and oversimplifying, it tells the story of a world where people have developed supernatural abilities that allow them to do things beyond the capabilities of a normal human. These skills are called quirks, and as with many shounens, there are two possible sides and outcomes. Those who use their skills for justice and good, which are the heroes, and those who use their skills for evil and to steal or torment from the general public, the villains. The main story follows Izuku Midorya, or as his friends call him, Deku. He's a young man who was born without a quirk, but despite not having that advantage, his dream was still to become a pro hero. And in the turning point of events, Deku showed courage beyond any other mortal, and with that he managed to call the attention of All Might, the most powerful hero, also known as the symbol of peace. And after that moment, Hero Aka started to tell the best story ever about how to create a feeling of legacy and heritage within various characters. This can also be seen in the movie Two Heroes. Actually, it's very easy to feel that sense of legacy there, since it's not really implied, it's very much in your face. But first, a little bit of history without spoilers. Hopefully without spoilers. One of the most curious, entertaining and well-designed characters of My Hero Academia is All Might. Whether he's in his muscle form or in his deflated mode, he's a character that really stands out. It should be noted that mangaka Kohei Horikoshi, the creator, was inspired by American superhero comics and even Hellboy to create this character. That's more or less the reason of his over-the-top personality and appearance. All Might is the alter ego of Yagi Toshinori, and his personality is almost the sum of all the stereotypes of the American superhero, since he not only has a famous catchphrase when he enters a combat, but similar to Superman, he always appears kind and friendly to the civilians and unbreakable and powerful to the villains. In fact, there are quite some superficial and essential similarities between All Might and Supes, since both always have a smile on their face. They are the number one when it comes to superheroes in their respective universe. They always wear bright colors favoring blue and red, and more importantly, they are the source of inspiration for many other heroes. With that in mind, now let me give some context to the story of My Hero Academia. In a very loose summary, with a little bit of spoilers, the main story starts from the fact that protagonist Midoriya does not possess a quirk to be a superhero. However, he has a greater courage and will than that of many other characters who do have quirks. And in a turning point of events, in a fight against a lesser villain, All Might has the opportunity to observe that fire of justice in Izuku Midorya, and after that fight, Deku sees the symbol of peace in its normal, deflated and non-heroic persona by accident. However, All Might trusts Midoriya and decides to explain where all his powers come from. The quirk that makes All Might be the symbol of justice and peace. This quirk is called One for All, and unlike many other quirks, it has the power to be passed and transferred from generation to generation through DNA. For the purpose of this video, I'm not going to go into detail about how that quirk was formed or where it came from, because actually that's a super interesting story that I do not want to ruin. But the important thing here is the sense of legacy or heritage that One for All has by itself. Back to the story, after explaining that to Midoriya, All Might decides to name him as his successor, and after many months of arduous training, the young man obtains the quirk One for All, and he begins to prepare for his enrollment in the University of Heroes. And well, you may think that One for All is a very basic quirk in execution or in the powers granted to the user. And as a matter of fact, you'd be correct. The thing with that quirk is that aside its powers, its very concept is super interesting. The quirk on its own allows the user to access power accumulated over the generations, which in turn allows the bearer to obtain strength, agility, speed and superhuman resistance. But the true beauty about this quirk is the concept of generational transfer. That's what really makes the quirk so interesting. On the one hand, there is the feeling of immortality of the quirk, since it went beyond the life and work of the initial user and, as a matter of fact, continues with Deku, the 9th user to date. On the other hand, Deku himself theorized that since One for All is a sacred torch that is transferred over the years, the spirits or shadows that he has felt at critical moments are the consciousness or remnants of the people who were previously the wielders of the power. Something that has been more or less explored in the most recent manga chapters, but I won't spoil that. So now we know a little bit more about what One for All is and who was the previous user and where did the current user came from. All Might being the 8th user and Deku being the 9th. So yeah, the connection is there and probably another author would just leave it there. But no, Kohei Horikoshi made a whole event to demonstrate the importance of legacy behind the passing of the torch. Okay, so now I'm going to enter spoiler territory about the latest season of My Hero Academia. I'm talking about what happens in the pages of the 94th chapter or episode 11 of season 3 of Boku no Hero Academia. In that storyline we can see All Might fighting against his nemesis All for One, a villain with a quirk named also All for One, since it's a quirk that removes quirks and gives them to the user. Long story short, after a big and brutal fight against One for All, All Might uses the last embers of the dying One for All in his body, and with a magnificent United States of Smash, he emerges victorious. The media obviously arrives at the place and All Might finds himself unable to hide his true form. So, for the first time ever, he is shown in his deflated mode and not in his heroic form. Because now he's actually unable to access it. And here is where a series of super interesting scenes continue. First we can see that All Might raises one of his arms. Then we can see that he is pointing with one of his fingers. The thing is that he is pointing towards the camera, but actually he's metaphorically pointing towards Midoriya, who is also present there, but All Might isn't aware. And then he speaks a phrase that can be understood on two different levels. The words are, "It's your turn next." On one hand, and what the press surely understand, with those words All Might is threatening all the criminals by saying that they will follow next. But on the other side, the truly tragic side of Midoriya, All Might is making clear that his time as the symbol of peace has ended and now it's Deku's turn to continue and become the best hero and to be the new pillar of justice that society needs. It's actually a scene that lasts around 4 or 5 panels in the manga, or like 5 minutes in the anime, but it's full of emotion and perhaps, if you want to believe that All Might can break the fourth wall, he's also inviting us to become agents of positive changes, to bring justice to society. But maybe I'm reading too much between the lines. What's definitely clear is that Midoriya is the one true successor and there is no turning back. All Might is over and the only one that can follow his footsteps is Deku. Not Endeavor, not Kacchan, not Todoroki, only Deku. As you might have guessed, this scene really marked me. For me, the way that it is constructed and how it showed all the emotional conflict, this is the best representation of how to create a legacy without needing years and years of continuity or a mega super hyper plot. And I'm absolutely not against the big mega continuities made famous by Marvel and DC, but Hiro Aka, with just a couple of scenes, managed to achieve a super emotional and powerful impact to the audience. With a single phrase, it definitely changed the life of Deku and his new responsibility to be the legacy of All Might and the heir of One for All. And that's actually one of the greatest storytelling strengths of Hero Academia. We all know the history of Superman and his unique legacy of being the last son of Krypton. And well, his powers come from the fact that Earth has a yellow sun and that makes him practically invulnerable and all-powerful. So you really have to be a very good writer to develop a threat for Superman that feels like a true menace for him so that we can more or less relate. The thing with Supes is that aside from his unrelentless moral code, he never really did have to make an effort to save the world and to be the symbol of justice. He was just the sun god that came from above. And even more, Superman will always be Superman since we have seen in previous stories that even the year 85,000, he is still alive as Superman 1 million, so actually there is no direct legacy with him. And I know of the Superman squad, but I'm actually talking about a real and true direct legacy. On the other spectrum we have Batman, but Grant Morrison and even Scott Snyder have told stories where Bruce keeps coming back. I mean, Bruce came back from the dead in Batman Rip, in Batman Endgame, and even in Dark Knight's Metal. So how are you supposed to leave behind a legacy, a heir, if you keep coming back from the dead? More or less, that's the trouble with superhero legacy, more or less. But now, before I end, I do not want to diminish any other type of heritage or legacy in fiction. Surely there are a lot of people who like that Superman is forever Clark Kent and Batman is always Bruce Wayne. And personally, I have no problem with that, as long as the creators tell good stories. There's even people like me that love the few and far in between moments where Batman has not been Bruce. I'm a big fan of Damian Wayne Batman, or Bat Damian, and even Dick Grayson, and I even bought the figure of Jimbat and the Rookie. But with Hero Academia, I would even dare to say that Kohei Horikoshi created a super interesting symbol that its essence is in the concept of being transferred and the legacy and relation that creates. And while the history of Deku can conclude, One for All could continue forever with stories of new users, very similar to what JoJo's Bizarre Adventure does with the new protagonist of each part. But actually, here it would be much more interesting because in this world and context, it doesn't matter if you're not a Joestar or a Wayne or from the L or Kent family, because with One for All, there's an opportunity for each and every one of us. Regardless of your natural origin, your skin color or your current capabilities, you can become someone as powerful and virtuous as All Might. Someone who can arrive anywhere and with confidence utter the words, "Hope has arrived, because I am here." And that's how you build an excellent and satisfying feeling of legacy and heritage. As you may have already guessed, I really like Hero Academia. It's actually one of my favorite modern shounen. And you can actually see that mangaka Kohei Horikoshi grew up with other shounens like Dragon Ball, but not only that, he probably was even influenced by American superhero comics. That's why Hero Academia manages to take all of those concepts in a lot of other franchises, not even American but also Japanese, and it puts its own spin of them. For me, All Might is the best character to come out of that series, but there are many other characters that are much more interesting than your average hero in a shonen story. But tell me, without spoilers, who is your favorite character in Hero Academia? Is he part of the villains or is he part of the heroes? Leave it in the comments, and to finish, my name is Absal, and if you want to continue the conversation about anime, you can follow me on Twitter, where I tweet in English and Spanish, and also on Instagram, where I upload pics of some of my cats and my figures. Sometimes even myself. This is a new channel where I'll be going to talk about anime, comics, and even some figure reviews, mostly Tamashinations and maybe some gameplay. So I invite you to subscribe to this channel and click on the notification icon to be the first one here. And if you like it, spread the word, and really thank you very much for staying to the end of the video. And without anything more to add, see you soon!